Hello everybody, this is Caesar aka Critical Art 64. This is my first video. I thought I would do a Reddit art critique. There's a lot of good submissions here. My first one, which I chose because I really like doing people more than anything, was this person. I guess she goes by, I think it's a she. I just want this plant. And aka her Instagram, rain deity art. Interesting. Very good. So let's open this up. So let's see. First things first, I'll start with the strengths. Really good drawing. Especially I really like the face. Good angle. I would say good, pretty solid anatomy. There's some proportional mistakes. I'll go into that. But the first thing I notice is that the canvas is a perfect equilateral square. And
masterpiece is hip to be square.
It's not hip to be square. A square like this is going to shorten your form. So I would suggest, especially with a bust, to use a long ways for results. A vertical long portrait, or you might sometimes if you have like a background, you might want to do a wide, but a square will block in your drawing, and that's probably part of the reason why your proportion is off. If you notice, let's see, measuring with heads here. So usually torso on a regular body is anywhere from 2.5 to 3 heads. First head down is usually where you see the nipples. Little low on here, that's why it seems to sag. This one, that would be where the navel would be, and this is coming up real high. I'm going to say it's just a high waist skirt. Yeah, we'll go into that. So the torso is kind of short. Also, I noticed you probably are working on a white background. Why I say that is that the values are crazy on this. Pulling the color picker here. What happens when you work on a white background is that it actually makes you push your values way too high. Really common mistake when you use a really bright background like this. Let's get the color picker here. See, you might want to start a canvas more around here, like a mid-tone. Right here's good, which would be about right here. You start with a mid-tone like that behind, and that'll kind of get your values under control, because otherwise you're going to overexpose everything. Now, the reason I say that, let's look at the mid-tone here. What would you say? Right about here? Look at that. 100% on brightness. That's crazy. That would suggest that it is glowing, and not just glowing or reflecting, but actually a light source itself. This is what you would want to use for like fire, for plasma. That's a crazy value. Typically you want your midtones, and I've seen this with your other art, it's a little more accurate. This one, for some reasons, kind of crazy. You want to put it right around here for flesh, but all the best colors are in this range right here. If you make your values darker than that, you're going to get mud, especially when you get into the yellows and the skin tones. That's how you end up with muddiness. When you go too high like this is like Mexican pottery. This is fluorescence. You don't want to make your values too bright like this, because say there was some light sources like these stars in here, or something that's actually on fire or glowing, you have nowhere to go. You overexposed everything, so you start losing contrast. Right here, if you wanted, that's pretty saturated. I would put it probably around here at least, if you wanted to keep that orange look. But just yeah, the keys on this are just way too high. Usually with shading, you're going to want to go on a curve like this. So here's where your midtone would be usually, about right around this range here. And your highlight's going to go here, and then your midtone, and then that's where your shadow's going to be, right around here. But everything is really high. Yeah, way too bright. So work with a darker canvas. That should clear some of that up. Some of these saturated values. See here, that's where your almost where your midtone should be. Yeah. Usually with shadows you want to, I mean, unless it's cast shadow, I guess. Well, anyways, what is this conveying? So when you have cool shadows like this, that tells you you have a warm light source like the sun. Usually a cool light source would have warm shadows. So this cool and this orange tells me she's out in the sun, probably in some sort of desert. So that's I drew mine. I did, where she's actually in a desert. So when you make your values like this is what happens. Let's go to mine. When you want to reserve those values for luminescence. So let's get a soft brush here. I could say make her shoot a laser beam. Yeah, that's how bright that is. I turn this into an eye laser, like a lightsaber. See, that's how bright that value is. It's crazy. Also, when you brighten it up like that, see, I thought you made your eyes too dark. No, your eyes are fine value-wise. It's just that you blasted everything else. It makes the eyes look dull. Yeah, and then let's take something like this. It's my girl Starfire here. Now she's actually glowing. She's an alien with orange skin. She glows in the dark. She has bioluminescence. Her hair turns into fire. I would describe this as highly colorful. Now let's look at the values here. Notice that where it's at. That would probably be their midtone here. And this is, she's glowing. Look at that. Let's go here. Watch it. Ding. See that? Look at her highlights. Let's look at the shadow here. See, there's a light curve here. Now she's actually glowing. Now look at the fire values. Right? They're kind of where you have the skin. So you want to save these values for fire. I would say the only time you might want to do this, because this is going to hurt people's eyes. It's too bright. Is if maybe you're doing like just a black line drawing, pretty much, and then you only have a couple of colors in there as a stylistic choice. Which brings me to the rendering. You have really good brush work in the face. You got some nice hard edges here. You put a lot of, there's some muddiness here. I guess that's to suggest wrinkles. Clean that up. But I love these edges. That's good. Good. Pretty solid. Good. You put a lot of care in the face, but let's look at here. It's splotchy. I could see the shape of the brush, and it's not. It's just a regular brush. Here, this one kind of suggests that there's like a bump here. Not sure if you meant to do that. That suggests that there's a dimple here. Just take a little more care with this. because you put so much good rendering here, and then you lose it all right here. The values on this are kind of weird. I guess this is like a really this is like the blue or yellow dress meme. So I guess this would be a dark gray if you color correct this, because look at this. That should be the white of the eye. Huh. Darker values on this pink, almost muddy in comparison. And then you have the same color outline on everything. If you're going to use the same line, I would say stylize the color more, make it more basic, because you're kind of halfway in, halfway out. You got some semi-realism here, but almost cartoony here. Kind of makes the face feel not connected with the rest of everything else. Now the proportion, unless you're going for like a Moana look, which I actually went to the liberty of getting what that looks like. Her proportions are kind of similar to this, because if you look at her heads, that's pretty grotesque. One head down is, see, her torso's 2.5 heads, so this is almost the middle of the torso. So notice where her breasts are. Now notice here, too far down, considering how short this is. And this eye makes it look like a navel, so that's off. But if you wanted to go this route, because see, with this face, I'd want a more realistic body, because how close this is. I mean, the eyes are kind of big, but it's pretty close to life here. To get away with this kind of proportion, you got to really exaggerate the face. That's kind of the art of cartooning. The more you take away from something, the more you add. Or you look at let's look at the Incredibles. They really mastered this. Notice to make his head long, they made it skinny. So the more you add, you subtract. So to make her hips look wide, they take away from the surroundings. To make their body short, they make their heads bigger. All around, heads bigger, body short, head bigger. Where you take away, you add. Where they add in the chin, they take away from the top of the head. Where they add to the shoulders, they take from the hips. Where they add to the hips, they take from the shoulders. That slimmer the body, bigger the head. Just a way to create balance. But to do this, you have to know your proportions in real life, regular proportions. Hell, even if you wanted to draw crazy cartoon stuff like this, you still have to memorize these proportions. Otherwise, these characters are going to change frame to frame, or they're going to change page to page if you're doing comics. And you don't want that. You want consistency. So just buckle down, learn your proportions. I'll make a video on that pretty soon, because there's going to be a lot of that. I would say that's one of the main mistakes you see with people, lack of consistency. I would say one thing that would really help with that too is study anatomy more. Learn how to draw a skeleton, and then draw muscles on that skeleton. Understand where the muscles connect. Because I notice on a lot of your art, the necks are big and long, and they're sometimes too thick, especially for females. You got to kind of know where the muscles attach to the cranium, and that just takes understanding the skeletal structure, the way the muscles go, and that will give you your consistency that you want. Make a few days of just doing that. I'll make some videos on that too. So just study more anatomy. Although you just won't be consistent, you must learn your muscles, where the fat is, where the bones are. There's no other way, unless you're always going to use reference, and not all references are the same. So you will never be consistent until you'll learn your anatomy and proportion. And once you understand that fundamental, then when you're doing cartoon work, it's going to be way easier, because now you'll know what it's supposed to look like. So when you take away something, you'll know where to add. So you can go with more anime long proportions, like Afro Samurai style. What they do is they take away from the width to add to the length. they make the limbs skinnier to make them long. They make the head bigger, and then they shrink the neck down to make it long. If you want to keep that long neck that you have on here, then you got to thin it down and lengthen the rest of the body to match. Because otherwise, it's just going to look like a giraffe or a man neck. You kind of want to do that. Or if you wanted to go more Moana style, then you got to, if she's kind of wider, you got to stuff it down. See, 1 to 2.5 heads. Also, to shrink the body, you got to grow the head a bit. If you notice on Moana, she has a really wide head to balance that out. Or if you wanted to go completely crazy, you know, maybe like Nicktoons, just take away and then add big head, small body. And then kind of watch how you do the face, otherwise they'll look like kids. So if you wanted to get into cartooning, but I'm not sure if you wanted to go realistic or illustrative or cartoony. It's kind of all over the place. So in summation, more anatomy studies, skeletal, muscular, learn your proportions, how many heads, right? Keep your rendering consistent. Think about this too. When you're doing coloring, you got to understand what environment is she in. That's going to change the coloring, the reflected light. What kind of light source is it? Is it cool? Is it warm? Tell more of a story, I would say. This kind of background doesn't do much to serve that. I mean, this is just a bust. I would say if you're going to do this, kind of fade it out more, I guess. I kind of would have liked to seen more down here. That kind of would have told me if it was a little bit more proportional or not. Not enough information here. And then, her face looks like she's she's looking down, but I guess it looks kind of stern, a little bit worried, looking off to the side, like she's going to throw some cards like Hadouken. Yeah, just a little more care in the rendering. The colors, get your values under control a little bit. Use the sweet spot. Now I'm going to kind of quickly go over mine. It's kind of new to digital painting, but just telling the story more, like she's a conjuring circle here. I'm a Rider White tarot guy, so I picked those instead. I just kind of went with more of a realism thing. I don't know if that's what you're going for. It was more of like a 50s high-cut waist skirt, because the way you kind of have it right and high, I kind of figured that's what you might have been going for. Chalice, dagger, Joshua tree, desert. Because that's what this is suggesting. She's outside. The only time you ever see this kind of orange is in direct sunlight. Maybe she's in an orange tent. Maybe she's kind of tanning salon, maybe. But yeah, these really high-key colors, I would tone it down a little. So yeah, just guess I'll go to the redraw.